Thank you for Thank you everybody for joining us this morning. We did have double the number booked, but you know, these things happen where people don't turn up. However, we've got a good team and we'll have some good networking at the end of this event. As you know, the last half an hour we're going to have breakout rooms to have 3 lots of networking. So you'll be able to speak to other business members and other businesses, which I hope you'll enjoy. So those who don't know me, I'm Bill Huxley, the CEO of People Against Poverty. Our work is international in 6 countries around the world, working with project partners who have got a passion for the work that they do, and we buy into that and support them in what they do. And our guest today is Atilla, who you'll be hearing from a bit later, from Romania. So because of time, tomorrow morning, if you want to, we're going to have a few quick Q&As at the end of this event, but tomorrow morning I'm going to be holding an open Zoom surgery for anyone that wants to know more about our work or about Business Against Poverty, more about Attila's work that he does in Romania. So that's just going to be an open forum for anyone to pop in. I'll have the Zoom open. If you turn up, great. If you don't, then I'll be sitting there on my own with Claire. So that's starting at 9:30 for about 45 minutes. So 9:30 to 10:15, that will be tomorrow morning. So I'm going to now go back to you, Paul, if you want to do your introductions.
Well, thank you, Val. So good morning, everybody. Great to see all your faces this morning. Welcome to this webinar, which we titled Global Mental Health, the Crisis in the Labour Market, which already sounds very interesting. We got 2 great speakers, as Val suggested. So we have Bill here, one of the founding members of People Against Poverty, probably well known to most of you. And has a lot of background in the topic, and so it'll be interesting to what he has to say. And then, as always, learning through that, we'll try and apply and understand what that context that was said means really for some of our charitable work on the ground. So I'm incredibly pleased to have Atilla Toth here, who is one of our key leaders in Romania, doing the work on the ground that the charity supports. So 2 great speakers. My name Paul van Hever. I'm the chair of the trustees for People Against Poverty and quite involved with the team in hopefully make everything go smoothly and have as much impact on the ground that we can have through your support. So a couple of things about today. So we have various sessions. We'll start with presentation from Bill and Atilla, and then we're hoping to get a little bit of engagement from you all and involved in the topic. And Bill will run an exercise with us all, which I think is very interesting and hopefully also applicable to your businesses. In between the sessions, there's definitely time to answer some questions, and I would encourage you to use the chat room if you have any particular questions, and then we can pick them up and answer them in between the different speakers and sessions. So feel free to do so. Obviously, we'll leave space if you just want to talk rather than write. That's okay too. You know, anything else, I would say if you're familiar with Zoom, it'd be great to get your reactions. There's a button at the bottom of your screen that will allow you to put in reactions to what you're hearing, and it's always nice to see people responding and see you know, kind of the little hearts flowing over the screen, etc., etc. On that note, I think we'll run. Hope that's okay for everybody. And I've got the great pleasure to hand over to Bill, who will kick us off.
Hi, everybody. Now, I'm in an unfortunate position here. I think some of you heard us speaking earlier. I can't see your faces. I can only see my slides. So I might pop my head around and look at Valerie's computer now and again. So please excuse that. Okay, so global mental health crisis in the labour market. So what's my qualification for giving a webinar on this subject? I thought I might share with you. I left school a long time ago at 15 with no qualifications. As my childhood was difficult, and I have to, excuse me, Val, I've lost the notes again. My childhood was difficult. I went into self-trained in electronics. I then became qualified in qualifications in the electronic security systems. And then I spent 25 years in executive management. I worked my way up. Is actually my only qualification, I forgot to tell you before I did the electronics, was I went to night school at 19 and got an O level in English, grade C. And even today, I feel that was one of my greatest achievements from one of my backgrounds and started me on my journey. So 1 to 25 years in executive management. I became an MD of a corporate company that was part of a global company, one of the biggest in its sector in the world. And working for that company was experience because I started very early and I built it up into a multi-million-pound company. But as we got acquired, the owners became more profit-centric, and that had its difficulties for me and in my own mental health journey. So I left that business, re-engineered myself, and I trained as a counsellor psychotherapist, which I've been doing for 14 years, specialising in trauma. And then at that time moved home, and I founded with Valerie People Against Poverty, and later I founded Business Against Poverty, working globally with poverty and mental health issues around the world. So I guess that's given me a lot of insight into mental health. I'm qualified in that area and into childhood poverty and into poverty globally. So what are we going to do today? Okay, so in the next 30 minutes, I hope to work over 3 areas. We're going to start off with part 1, which is the stark truth. And this is going to be an overview of the labour market and the crisis that we are seeing unfold before our very eyes. And as Paul said, we'll then be passing over to Attila, and then we'll come back. And part 3, I'll conclude with how to develop some robust strategies and systems to develop a shared culture of well-being, attractiveness, growth, and a sustainable success. So let's start by looking at this graphic. I haven't got much time to concentrate on that graphic.
There we go.
So this is the sector. Oops, lost my slide file. Excuse us for our technical problems.
Just click
Slides.
those ones.
Don't click anything.
You're there. You're at the right point.
So we're back there. Sorry about the interruption. No, not there.
Okay, sorry, my fault. I'm on the wrong one.
Okay. In this graphic, I'll just give you a minute to absorb that while I'm talking. We haven't got a lot of time, as I say, to talk through in detail that graphic. But you can see at about 27.5 million people working in the private sector, the rest are in government telling us what to do. And you can see that the distribution of people in sectors starts off very high. In those areas, that tends to be people in retail, manual work, and the so low-skilled sectors. As you'll see in the middle section, there will be transport, lorry drivers, warehousing. as it gets lower. And we've seen that in the news and its impact on the labour market. And just down to the lower area is in actually waste management, everyday services, only 400,000 people in that market. In brief, the labour supply is small and shrinking. The majority is in unskilled labour, and those are the most affected by poverty. Now, I think our perspective is having to change. It's peculiar, really, because I started writing these slides up about 3 months ago, and what I've written is unfolding right before our very eyes right now. And I think our perspective is having to change. We had this dilemma where we've had skilled workers and unskilled workers. In the skilled workers, we thought of the technical people, the people that went to university, the kids that were going through, that are getting 5-star, 4 stars in their A levels. And we demeaned the labour force at those in the so-called unskilled labour market. But now we're not seeing them in terms of unskilled, we're seeing them in terms of critical. There are social care workers, there are porters in the hospitals, there are people on the assembly line, there's all these people, there are ambulance drivers, and many of these are highly skilled in their own way. They may not have the university degrees, but as we've been hearing, the skills you need to be a lorry driver is incredible. The population is aging. The population is stressed. The population is changing its work patterns. Globalization, less traveling to work. The labour supply is becoming less and less. And this is a global phenomenon, actually. In Europe, the labour supply is reducing. Even in China, reduced their labour supply by about 5 million last year and the year before because of their policies on childbearing. The ageing population of people retiring early from stressful jobs and different working patterns is having its impact. And people are becoming stressed. People are becoming ill. People are suffering from anxiety. People are leaving sectors and not entering sectors. And the lorry drivers and social care are good examples of that. There is truly a growing crisis in the labour market. So here, I've just got a little graphic put together on some of the key issues that affect labour supply and mental health and correlate with poverty. And let's look at a link between some of them. Clearly, you can see a correlation that the labour supply of mental health and poverty is correlated. I'm going to repeat some of the things, but I don't apologise for that. Ageing nation, more people in retirement, living in lower incomes and maybe cognitively struggling with dementia, etc. Polarised politics and identity. We can see this is clearly in Brexit, the leavers and the stayers, and in COVID, those vaccinated and those who are not. Left or right politics, people tend to be in camps and people are less willing to be challenged. In finance, rapid inflation, pay freezes, house prices, house supply will all equally have its effects on the labour supply and poverty and mental health. Education, it's well researched that the poor are more likely to be ill and suffer from mental health issues. The poor are more likely to die early. Trust. Don't know how many of you talk to have young people in your network, but this is particularly where I see a mistrust. There's almost a complete lack of trust by young people of governments, politicians, authorities, professionals, and not without due cause, I would say. Who does trust the experts anymore? Who are the experts, we ask? And job insecurity, all those insecurities exacerbated by poor management practices. We will look at that more closer in part 3. So a gloomy story is, and I can't protect people from the gloomy story because this is a fact. And this webinar is really about, let's not stand idle while this happens. The truth is, our young people are traumatized, the nation is traumatized, the world is traumatized, and we're all becoming a little more emotionally unwell. Just look at what the country has endured since 2001. In 2001, so-called war on terror, 9/11 started, years of bombing on our streets. Continued through to 2008, we had the financial crash, collapse in the housing market, home repossessions. And just as we were getting a grip on that, along came Brexit, bringing its polarisation, geographical rupture, and for some, a crisis in identity. Oh no, along comes COVID, and then the threat to our mortality, changing our lives forever, polarising us between those people that are vaxxed and unvaxxed, and creating the passport dilemma for COVID passes. And then to boot, a very big boot at that, yes, climate change. It's always been with us, yes, but we're seeing it again unfold between our very eyes. Severe flooding, houses falling into the sea, etc., etc. The nation is traumatized, folks, and I can't see you, but I hope you're all still well as I've gone through that, and not heading for those of you that smoke for your cigarettes. So that's the background. That's the background of where we are. And in part 3, I'll come and talk about some of the things that I propose that we can do as we don't stand idle. But for now, I'll pass you back to Paul. Paul, can you hear me?
I can, very much so. Thank you, Bill. That was pretty depressing, hearing all that, and you realize that it's been not just our COVID problems, but obviously a longer term issue, and maybe some of that will resonate with you in and around your businesses, your own workforce, and the challenges that you have. So what we really want to do next is to hear a little bit about that context on the ground in our projects that are in Regan in Romania. And so we'll hand over to Atilla to show us a little bit of the work, the challenges, and the kind of things that they have been able to do. So Atilla, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Romania. My name is Atilla Toth, and I am working in the middle of Romania, a place called Transylvania, since 16 years now. And most of my work is among very poor and needy people. And I want to share my experience in the next minutes about the COVID-19 and what effect took this virus on the poor people's mental health. So first, I want to talk a little bit about what kind of poverty we are talking about. Where I am working in the gypsy communities, there is big gypsy communities in this area. I just share a few things was still shocking me after 16 years of work. First is the lack of food what we have in these communities. So many families who has 9, 10, 6, 5 children, there are many families who has even now they are many days to go without food. That's always has been here, but when I see especially children going without food, that's always breaks my heart. Among those children who has no foods, there are newborn babies, and the key problem for them to survive. So they find different techniques to survive these days without food. So one of the things what they are doing to keep babies alive, they are just mixing some sugar with water and feeding their children. This is very sad. This is very shocking even now. Even if we are in European Union, there are hundreds of families just in my area. What I see every day, that there is a lack of food for many families. The second things what I see all the time is the lack of medicine and lack of healthcare. Many of these families where I am working, the gypsies family, not even registered, and they have no access to any medical or any healthcare. Sometimes they are so needy and so poor that they cannot afford even a simple painkiller. So if they have a toothache or a headache or something, you know, they just suffer for days without a simple painkiller. Water and electricity is a luxury for most of this family. Those who has electricity or those who have water, like running water, I'm talking in their house or in their area, we are not considering them very poor now. So because they have no water, they need to walk a long distance to get them water. That's causing a lot of problems. They are not cleaning enough their houses, themselves, their clothes, and that's why they are getting ill and getting smelly, dirty all the time. Of course, all of this is happening because this family has no jobs. They have no jobs because they are not educated. The poor, the problem is that even those children, which is many, it's very interesting for me to see that these poor families has much more children than others families. They are not going to school, even if we want to help them to go. They said they don't have possibilities to go to school. They have no clothes. They have no shoes or any access to the school. So that's causing them to have no job. So this is a circle, you know, because they don't go to school. They don't have a job. Then they needs to go into begging. Going to the trash can in the town here, finding food for every day. The girls are going to prostitution and a lot of stealing and a lot of criminal activities. Those who are registered, the government trying to help them with some social help, but that is very, very low. What you cannot live from 24 pounds per month. And they need to work more than 30 hours, about 37, 38 hours per month for the government cleaning the street to get this social help. This is even now it's help for them because if they have social help, they can go to the hospital without paying if they are sick. So this is the poverty what we are talking about, and I want to show you some pictures. The first picture is about a family where 6 children lived for 6 years, and among them it was babies. It's just a tent, you know, and we have very cold winters here. It can be -20 Celsius. And in this house, when I found these people, actually they had frost bites, you know, their fingers get black because of the cold. The next family is the similar situation in the next pictures. Right now we are building a new room for this family because there are 6 children. One of them just recently died among the children, and they are living. This is a mud house full with rats and very, very dark, dirty places. The other families is trying to build from, you can go next, from wood. You know, here is 4 children with the parents. Actually, because they have no possibility, they just put together from wood some kind of shade. Actually, there is the children who is living in the previous house, and the next one is you know, we can see all the time this kind of children in the streets without without food and without clothes, without any possibilities. So this is the situation, this is the poverty what we are talking about in this area. And they were enough struggle for them to face, you know, the key word for them is surviving. They were hardly survived when the COVID-19 arrived. And the situation and the for this family, it just became worse. You know, this family who had no reserve, nothing to put aside. When the COVID-19 came, they were locked down for months without any reserve. You know, they didn't have any money put aside. They didn't have any food. They didn't have anything to put aside. So that was a very tragic moment in 2020 when these people couldn't leave their house where they needed to stay for months. They couldn't go to beg, they couldn't go to trash, there was no even church meeting for them, and they couldn't encourage each other or be with each other, and no income. And the sad things was we didn't know, nobody knows when this will end. So many of them became very sick. And the interesting thing for me was that when somebody get this virus, and many of them get, because they are living very close to each other in big families, they were so ashamed, you know, that they get the virus. I get the virus too from them. And when I started to talk, you know, that, oh, I have coronavirus, I am sick and everything, they were like, don't tell anyone, you know, because this is such a shame to have the virus. Because anyway, you know, a lot of people here, Romanians and Hungarians, is looking them like people who has infection all the time. So they try to hide. When they became sick, many of them died, you know, and I did many funerals among these people. And the sad things was that they couldn't do the proper funeral. For them, the funeral is a very big event. They are 3 days and 3 nights. They don't sleep. All of them is around that coffin, and they couldn't do the real funeral. So that was a very shocking moment. They have no chance, no other chance, just starting to borrow money from the local loan sharks, or we call them the local mafia, and they put them very big interest on them, and they were separated to each other. They were everybody gone. So after this COVID, what we can see now in these people's life, we see terrible anxiety everywhere. So everybody is so stressed, everybody is so worried, everybody is so on rest. I have many people who say, I cannot sleep, I don't know what's happening in my life. So that's the reality what I can see now. We see a lot of debt without any solution to come out from. Many families of this to survive, you know, because they went without food for 2-3 days. Then when they saw the children, they said, oh, okay, we need to borrow money. So now many of these, next to the miserable things what they have a lot of debt in their back, and they don't have a solution to pay. In these communities, just one of the communities, just to imagine, we have like almost 4,000 adults in a very small area. There is an increase of violence and a lot of increase of drugs, alcohol, and it's a very unrested place. There is broken families because of this virus, because some of the family member, when they see that desperate situation, they just decided to leave. There are mothers who left their children and went to work in prostitution out abroad or here in Romania, and left the children with grandmothers or even in the street. And there are a lot of men who just, when they see that no solution after the possibility came, they just left, and we don't know where they are. They left the children here, and so it's a very sad situation. Or some of them, like, they are just gave it up, and they said we don't care. Here is an example about a young lady who has 7 children. In my left side there is a blue house. That's the house what she had before the pandemic, and even this house was built for her by a Christian organization to help her to keep their children. But because of the debt what she accumulated during this pandemic, she lost their house to pay it, and now herself started to build her own house from mud. And that picture is from last week. She is right now in quite an open air. Now is quite the cold is coming here, and that's where she lives now with 5 of his children, because 2 was taken by child protection. So the situation after the COVID here is very sad, and we are looking for solution. And there are some situation that what I see now, I just simply say, I don't know what to do, because I don't know how many families like this can go out from debt. I don't know how those broken family can be reunited, or how then these people can come back to so-called normal life. What I see, that without physical and material help, they will not do it. So we try to be next to them. Even in the pandemic, we are thanking for People Against Poverty and everybody who was next to us. We shared a lot of food. Though when it was lockdown, we made thousands of food packages, and for some families, we were the only help who materially, physically, we gave them food or anything like that. Or even when they're fixing the house or needed medicine, we are trying to help them, because these people, without help, they cannot make it. Next to that, is very important to be with them spiritually, encouraging them, giving them hope, because some of them just many times I hear I rather die to see so much suffering, and this is a daily things what happening here among these very, very poor people, what I am talking about. And the solution, long-term solution, will be education, mentoring them, long-time mentoring, and be next to this family to help them to come out from this poverty. So this is the situation what's have here, and thank you for your time. I hand back to Paul.
Well, thank you, Attila. That is a hard thing to see. And then I'm thinking, I'm complaining about being on Zoom calls all day and how hard it is, just put things in context. Thank you for taking us through that. It is, of course, a fact that even, sorry guys, I don't know, can you go on mute if you're not speaking?
The various businesses that are members. It's very much.
All right, I put them on mute. So obviously it's difficult to kind of go from what we've just heard to our own context. And in our richer Western world, we're having to a certain degree also deal with a lot of the effect of the last 2 years. And that will affect the workforce. That's how we work. That's been our cadence of work, our interaction with people, and also how we run and drive and set up our businesses. And so Bill will next take us through an exercise that will start to maybe help us think about our business a little differently. And so I'm going back over to Bill to help us do that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Atilla. Well, that was so stark, so sad. And I guess what we're doing in this section is saying, as business leaders, what can we do? Is we all manage or run our own families on a micro and a macro level in our companies and our houses. And we're influencers. We can't stand idle and be overwhelmed. And that's so easy as it's all unfolding so quickly. So let's have a look at what we might do. So as I've clearly said, the workforce is reducing. Skills and common labour are in short supply, and the health of workforce is getting more fragile. Excuse the short advertisement for Business Against Poverty here, but I believe it's time to put the heart back into business, but put the heart in a strategic and fundamental way. We need to have robust strategies and systems to develop a shared culture of security, shared ownership, values we all buy into, and attractiveness. We need to become people-invested growth organisations. People are no longer a commodity as they were in the days of high unemployment. People are the new capital. I would argue that people have always been the capital, but actually in practice, that hasn't been the case. We need to start at the beginning. And the beginning is re-examining our own values. What are our own core personal values, and do they align with relevant partners? These are our business partners, our partners at home in our marriages or our relationships. When values are not aligned, it creates anxiety. Anxiety creates stress, creates physical problems, and starts the downturn in a person's emotional well-being. Once we have and understand our core values and thinking how we might align them, we need to translate those values into business values. And those values have to align with your stakeholders, employers, employees, investors, suppliers, the community. And then, having done that, we need to translate your values into a company purpose. You may have heard that word, but company purpose is not CSR. CSR is really about governance, preserving energy, sustainability, etc. All very fine things are necessary to do, but purpose is the reason we get up in the morning. Purpose is about people. So now we're going to do, with your permission, I'm going to run you through a little exercise, and hopefully this exercise is you're going to be able to take away with you and implement in your workplaces. This exercise I would do normally with a group would take probably an hour to 2 hours, and we're going to do it in about 5 minutes in a limited way, but it should give you a great insight. So what I would like you to do is, if you have pen and paper in front of you, or tap it out on your phone or any device that you can, I would like you to write down 10 core values, your 10 core values. You may not get down to 10. You only have 1 minute, but write as many as you can, please. And I'll give you 1 minute. While you're doing that in the background, I'm just saying that when I do this exercise, I find that there's a gender difference, that women are able to name more values, no pressure onto the ladies that are here, is because they have a wider emotional language, and men find this a more difficult struggle. So what I do, I list up on a board, a whiteboard or a screen, is around 100 values. So quite difficult, folks. I'm asking you to tap into 10 without any assistance. Post office. Okay, so just coming up for the minute. Apologies, it feels a bit like a school exam. But there are no right or wrong answers on this one. Now what I would like you to do, however many that you have, is take the top 3 and then put them in order, please. And for that you have about 30 seconds. Take the top 3, putting them in order. Thank you. And now what I would like you to do is take 1 and just type that value in the chat box. Val will evaluate those, and later at the end of the session, she'll come back and see how our core values are aligned as a group. So I'm just going to let you type in your top core value. Okay. Thumbs up. Is everybody finished? Yeah. Okay, so I don't know how you find it. I'd love to have that chat. It was a very quick exercise. I guess for some more difficult than others, but I think it's quite a difficult exercise to do really appropriately, especially when you're doing with many more values and many more people.
Bill, you might not be able to see this as you're speaking, but there's a lot of overlap. I mean, I see honesty quite a few times, respect, fairness, kindness, peace, integrity, love. Those are some of the things that people said.
Thank you. Now, taking some of those, if we say, let's say friendly, peace, let's take any one of them. We want to get a position where this becomes actually a part of the strategy, and does that align with everybody else? So let's take something very opposite. Let's say your value was hard work, and that was your top value, and you found that your workforce, its top value was family, or your stakeholders will have different sets of values that you can see when translating those. There's no synergy between all stakeholders. This is not good for business. This is not good for mental health. This is not good for profit. When you do a values exercise and you can align them, you start to get a flow that creates an energy in the workplace. It starts changing and people feel more respected. Let's have, what I'd like you to do is, we haven't quite finished this, but what I'd like you to do is take this exercise back to your partners, whoever they may be, or your workforce, and do that exercise and find out your top 3 values and see how they align with everybody else's values. And then consider, where are those values in your purpose and mission statements? How does it align with your business? And is your business on course for a sustainable success around a value-based company?
Can I just come in here? There was a big mark for honesty that came up 5 times. Honesty, integrity, respect and kindness were the top scorers within that. So, you know, you're lining up with each other, which is great. I mean, obviously there was loads of others coming up: freedom, compassion, inclusiveness, love, but honesty came out the top 1.
Okay, great. So how? What do? We need to become a people-centric, not profit-centric company. I would argue, I've run some multi-million-pound companies, it doesn't mean you throw away the strategies for driving profit, but profit will follow people. People do not follow the profit. Publish and live your values daily. Reward good behavior. Call out the bad behavior. Mirror is the values yourself of the business. Pay the best affordable rates. It will catch up on you in the end if you don't. Building trust. Deconstruct mistrust. Demonstrate a compassionate workforce. Keyword there, demonstrate. Mental health friendly and publish. I'd like to see a sign on every advert, on every website. We're a mental health friendly company. I've often thought of doing a little organisation around that myself. Have mental health first aiders in the organisation. Your workforce is full of anxiety, stresses, trying to live their daily lives in these days of crisis. There are many organisations, and if anyone wants to know some, I can forward them to you later, that train the staff around first aid in mental health. Where are the KPIs, the key performance indicators of health and well-being? They're all around profit and time management. Create your health and well-being key performance indicators for your company and publish them. Be known to the public, be known to your stakeholders, be known to your customers, for your people. Don't just have a tick list of HR statements sitting on a portal. Define your purpose and your values, that they can be seen and that they can be executed and they can be measured. I've been working with one of our Business Against Poverty's supporters, member, and whose financial director is one of our trustees, working with them on just this for a number of weeks now. And so I'm giving you, with their permission, the Adam Brooks Group, an example of a purpose and core value statement that will actually go on their website and is marked through their business. So just take a couple of seconds to assimilate, and I'll bring out some key points. So what do Adam Brooks get up for in the morning? They're skilled. They're lucky enough to be skilled. Their whole mandate in life is to share their collective knowledge, their experience and their skills. They want to create a financially and emotionally rewarding work environment. They want to empower their clients to do what they do best, run their business. And they want to make a sustainable difference to their own community and to a wider community. And that purpose statement was built out of their values. See how they align with yours. These were a number of directors, and when we came together, we came out with these core values. First, they wanted to be a family business. They employ 18 people. They have about 6 branches, but they wanted to stay a family business. Wholeheartedness was core to them. Trust, loyalty, friendly, ethical, integrity. They wanted to be helpful and reliable, thoughtful, collaborative, sustainable, and sustainable that was in capital, social, environmental assets, fairness, encouragement, enabling, and finally those two, shared growth and profit drive, for their employees to share in their growth and their profits. And their succession plan involved very much shareholder giving out shares to long-serving members. So finally, as we come into land, this is not an easy exercise to do. It means a long-term culture change. Remember, your labour force is becoming more anxious and becoming less available to you. This is going to require investment. You're going to have to document these words. Then you're going to have strategy plans that will actually focus on each word and say that will lead to a measurement to say that you've done it. So it's no good just saying we'd like to be honest and kind. What will be the key performance indicators to prove that you're honest and kind? Now you're saying you have integrity. What systems are in place to measure integrity, to call out when we're not having integrity? And how do you as owners live your life? It will be necessary to buy in and have joint ownership of your staff. It's a shared journey. And finally, celebrate it. Tell the world. Be known for your staff. Be known for your values. And make yourself a business with a difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. That was very telling and very insightful and hopefully helpful to all of us to have another think and reflect on our businesses and our own kind of behaviors and our own purpose inside the companies we work for. There were a few comments and questions, Bill, on chat. And one of them I wanted to ask you is from Anita, who was saying, you know, I recently was pulling somebody up on bad behavior and it didn't work out. And it actually meant that I was felt to be the one in the wrong. And so how do you go about that? How can you support each other if you feel that you want to pick people up on bad behavior and not living purpose and values? Any advice?
Yeah, I think I'd like to move away. You do need to pick up or call out, but I would like to think of another expression, call in rather than call out. Is if you reward good behavior, if you mirror good behavior, if you celebrate good behavior, that stands out in the light. Bad behavior becomes very clear. It will show up, it will be seen. And other people in the workforce will call it out. If you have a purpose-driven, values-based statement in your company that you're living and breathing by, you get a new option. You don't get the option without it. You would say, excuse me, can I have a word with you? I notice you've been doing this. That's not really good. Well, that's a negative conversation that's just going to take a defense. If you draw people back and say, hey, we're celebrating these values. And if you look at these values of, let's say, integrity, is how did you think you have abided in this situation with integrity? Because we're keen to be seen as a company that has integrity. The conversation is different, Anita. You're always drawing back to the light, not putting light on the darkness, if that makes sense.
Well, that makes sense to me, Bill. Thank you. You know, I think that where we are at the top of the hour, we should draw this discussion and presentation to a close for now in this plenary setting. I will shortly also stop the recording, as we wanted to give you all a chance to get to know each other a little bit more and either discuss what you've heard or just generally talk about, what it is you do and what drives you and maybe what business you have, and just network and connect. So there's really no agenda there. It's just us giving you an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit. So as for those that are kind of good at Zoom, you might have seen this before. We'll generate some randomly selected pairs of people, and we'll get you to go into a breakout room for 10 minutes, have a conversation with whoever is there, introduce yourself, and then we'll bring you automatically back to the main room, if I can call it that. And then probably we'll do another 10 minutes. Hopefully you'll be randomly selected with somebody else if Zoom does its job. And we'll do the same. So that's 2 times 10 minutes. And then when we're all back, we'll close the session, and I'll have a quick poll to ask you for some feedback. So that's where we are. So just thanks again to our speakers, both Attila and Bill. Well done, and certainly learned today. I hope you did too. And so let me stop the recording at this point,